you tell us your name?
Sometimes they show up with facial features. We'll get to that in a minute. I'll show some pictures that I found, but sometimes we've seen actual facial, witnesses have described facial features. You know, most of the time it's not. Most of the time they just see the dark caped figure with a big hat. But sometimes I've actually heard descriptions of facial features, eyes, nose, mouth, that kind of thing. Have y'all heard that too?
I've heard that a few times, that you've got some facial features and some people are like, well, I remember seeing a mustache, or
Yeah.
I remember the eyes. I remember the chin, how strong the chin was, and it's like, okay, wait, that doesn't usually fit where you're looking at shadow people, but it does make sense too in some ways, because I don't think every spirit is able to manifest themselves completely, and so sometimes I think that when we get some of these shadow people that are out there, it's another spirit that is trying to manifest and does not succeed in doing so.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. Well, it's time for another commercial break. We'll be back right after this. Our very own author, Christine Rogers. So go check out her books on Amazon, Books A Million, and my mind just went blank. Barnes & Noble. There you go. Find her there. All right. Now we want to get into some actual witness accounts. Andrea, you had told me or told us that when you saw what you thought was a hat man, it wasn't at night.
Well, no, it was at night. It was at night, but I was awake.
It was, wasn't the witching hour or anything like that. It was back in 97, 96, 97. And I was staying the night with a couple girlfriends, and we decided to go pick up a pizza at Little York Pizza. It's a little pizza dive. And so we had, it's on a corner street, and we had to park a few parking lots down. So there was 5 of us, and we're walking down the street. It's Main Street. To our left, there are street lights. We're on the sidewalk. We're walking single file. I don't know why. We just were. And I'm in the back, kind of making sure. I was always the one that I didn't want anybody to be left out. So I would put myself in back to make sure that everybody got to be a part. I hated it if somebody was behind us being left out. So I'm in the back, and I kind of just doing my own thing. And I look down at the ground, and I'm watching our shadows, bounce. Very nice shadows. I get to mine, and behind me is a 6th shadow, and it's a profile, so I thought it was interesting of facial features. I mean, I could clearly make out, the nose and the chin and the brim of the hat, and I got goosebumps, and I kind of and turned around and looked, and there was nothing there. And then I went back and looked, and there was nothing there. So now I'm standing here, my friends have left, and I'm like trying to figure out what could have caused a shadow walking with us, because it was definitely a human. It was a human shadow. It was just like mine and the 4 other people in front of me. And I was kind of retelling this to John, my husband, right before the show. And I said, I came home the next day, told my mom about it. I told my girlfriends about it when we got back, and they all kind of just blew it off. Kind of like, okay, and I could understand that, but it bothered me so much that I would draw it. And like I said, it was kind of like a therapy, very therapeutic. I would draw what I saw all the time. And I said, it's almost like when people have alien encounters, they would draw the gray man and, trying, they were consistently drawing it, trying to get it out of their system. Well, that's, I think what I was trying to do was trying to rationale and just draw what I saw over and over. So, but that's it's very short experience. I know what I saw. It takes a lot to make me scared. And I have had some situations, like paranormal, unexplainable situations, where I have been very afraid. This didn't make me scared, but I didn't like it. I didn't, I was very uncomfortable, and I'll be honest, I never went back to the pizza place again. And when I was going through the situation with John and also telling a couple of my friends about it, I was thinking about what my friends were involved in. I had one friend, I didn't go to a Catholic school, I went to a Christian school. And I had one friend who was dating a boy who ended up being exorcised at school. And then I had 2 other friends that were very heavily involved in recreational drugs. And then the other friend was also battling demons. That's what she called it. She was seeing things at night. That's one of the reasons why we were staying the night, is because she didn't like to sleep alone at night. So we all just went over to hang out. So I don't know if maybe I saw something that was attached to one of them. I kind of was a hunky-dory kid, I was kind of a boring kid. I didn't get involved in a lot of stuff. So I don't know if I saw something that was attached to them or wanting to feed off of them.
Right.
I have a question for you, Andrea. Have you, when you were younger, did you ever draw pictures of shadows and stuff like that you couldn't explain, and people looked at you like you were completely nuts, but you personally had that experience, and the only way to express yourself was to draw those pictures?
I did. I talked about things a lot. When I was young, I used to tell my mom about heaven, I guess I waved at a kid once, and my mom was like, "Who's that?" I was like, "Oh, we played together when we were in heaven." So I know that I definitely would see things and was told, "Oh, it's just your imagination."
Yeah. Well, what about the rest of you guys? Have you ever, as a child, drew pictures and you couldn't explain it to anybody?
I drew American airplanes shooting down Japs.
Oh, that. No, I don't. I mean, no, but I definitely am a shoo-in for like cell memory, genetic memory. So I sometimes wonder if my fascination for a lot of antiques and eras that, I mean, how many 14-year-olds do you know that go, I want to decorate my room like a Victorian bedroom? Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, I just started talking to my father again, and it's brought up some memories of pictures that I drew when I was little, and I don't remember drawing them, but he said that I did, and there was some shadow people in there. I mean, you had the typical, the mom, the dad, the brother, the sister, the dog, and blah blah blah. But there was always somebody off to the side that didn't necessarily have a face, but it was just like a shadow. And I remember that today, and it was like, I don't even remember doing that. But he showed me pictures of it, and it's like, wow, okay.
Well, speaking of drawing, I collected a few to share today of witnesses to the Hat Man that actually drew what they had seen. See what you think about these. That's supposedly what they saw. Kind of creepy, huh? Now that one's just that's
horrific.
Yeah, that's where they said that they feel like the Hat Man was kind of controlling all these other entities. And here's another one along that line.
Yeah, see, I've drawn pictures like that a long time ago.
I've seen something like that, but that wasn't, I would never thought it was a Hat Man. I saw something very similar.
What'd you say, Tommy?
Yeah, he's got like 4 other entities. He had like 4 other entities right there with him, but one trying to pull the covers on the bed, but the Hat Man was actually standing behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's standing back there behind him.
And then the last one, to me, this is the creepiest.
That's about like what I saw.
Wow. And then Tim sent us this just a few minutes ago.
This is, I'm trying to think of what year this would be, 2016, 2017. This was taken by a guest outside of one of the building itself was built in 1888. It's an old stone building, but the guests, when they went back to look at it, could see a form that was standing right there. It's a place that we actually get temperatures. It will jump with the digital thermometers up to 300 degrees in that spot.
Wow.
Which makes no sense as why the temperature is so high right there, because it shouldn't be jumping that high. But you put your hand in it, you're not feeling the heat. But why it's in that spot, I have no idea.
That's kind of crazy, considering what Christine said just a little while ago.
Right. That's coming off.
Yeah.
That's a new one on me, guys. I'm not that I'm the most experienced with the paranormal, but that's one I've never come across was temperature spikes. I've dealt with the temperature drops, but not the spikes. That's a new one on me. Wow, that's pretty cool. Go ahead.
I was just I've never come across anything like that, but I've read about a few accounts of it, and it usually, I might be wrong, but isn't that usually when you have a temperature spike, like it's supposed to represent that you're really in the presence of something kind of evil? Like it means it's harmful. I'm really new at that one, and that's just all
Yeah.
I seem to know
You
about
know,
it.
you start feeling like a heaviness on you instead of in the cold where it's like, okay. But with the heat, it's so heavy that you feel like you can't move, but you have to move to get away from it. Otherwise, it
Right.
feels like it would consume you, type of a thing.
Wow. Wow.
Now, the building right next door to that one belonged to Little John Pendergast. His brother was a mafia mob boss in Kansas City. And there are people that talk about they get locked in the basement storage room all the time. That they'll go in there and all of a sudden the door will just slam on them. There's nobody else around.
Wow.
And so I know that in would be 1925, I think. He and his Little John and his buddies had a gunfight right there inside that building right next door. And so I've often wondered if this is an overflow from that incident.
Could be. Could be. All right. Well, I dug on YouTube and I was actually trying to find video evidence, and I actually found one and a picture that was taken that could be the Hat Man. See what y'all think about this. Well,
Wow.
one of them standing in the window. And like they explained when I found it, that's an old flip phone. You can't download and manipulate those.
No.
How they got it off of there, I don't know. They may have just sent it somehow. And then the guy at it was actually a wedding reception. I mean, that one to me, it could almost be somebody standing there just in the shadow, so it didn't show him clearly. So I don't know. But that first one, something was standing.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. All right. What's going on down here? Okay, Tommy's in and out. Okay. Tommy, where'd you go? All right, we got Tommy back now. All right, I know we've gone over an hour, folks, and we still have a lot to cover. What did you say, Tommy?
I said my feed here keeps kicking me out.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. You think you got it good enough where you can tell us about a couple of stories you've gotten on the Hat Man?
Yeah, I can try to. Skipping will let me. Let's see. Go my first one. First one we was talking about a while ago. This is one we was talking about a while ago. Young lady had called me and part of this happened just like I said Wednesday night. She was working in her garden, messing with her on one end of her garden. So she got the feeling kind of funny. Felt like somebody was watching. She looked up, and at the other end of her garden, he was standing right there looking at her.
Wow.
And she done the state, looked away, looked back. He was still there, but he just finally, after about a minute, he disappeared right in front of her. And as far as the shadow people, she said she's been seeing them for the longest since she's been there since March. But she don't just see them pop up, even inside and outside the house both. Sometimes, like in the house, they'll be up towards the ceiling or down towards the floor, just normal height.
Right.
Same thing outside. She'll see them where it looked like the, I forgot what you call them off Harry Potter, the little smoky demon looking thing. But anyway, she'll just see this black blobs with a face in them. Sometimes at the limbs of the trees, sometimes at the base of a tree. One's in the middle of a garden. And the first time she actually seen the Hat Man was inside her kitchen. She was on one end of the counter getting stuff, prepping stuff for supper. She had that feeling again, looked up. He's standing at the other end of her counter looking at her. Looked at her just for a second and disappeared. No facial features, no red eyes. Said to her, it felt more. He didn't feel evil to her or bad to her. She said he felt like he might have been a messenger.
Huh.
So she actually had a calm feeling when he was too.
Good. Right. I mean, that's good. Awesome.
Did she get a message?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Here's hoping.
Not yet.
Yeah.
We're gonna look for it.
All right. Okay, Tim, tell us about the one that you experienced.
When we moved to Kansas, we moved here in 2001. We actually used to live right across the street from where we're living at now. It was late one evening while we were living there, and I just remember something touching my leg in the middle of the night, like petting my leg. And of course, I wake up, and this man, I remember him standing there. It was just shadow, but I remember the cowboy hat was what I remember about it. Him standing over the top of me. And it was still a few seconds before I screamed, if it was even that long. My wife, of course, wakes up. By that point, he's just gone. But it bothered me that it was reaching out and touching me and like caressing me. And of course, I sat up late that night, scared to death, but I'm reading a book with my book light on. And about an hour later, I heard what sounded like a stagecoach or a wagon coming down the street. And we don't have that, in town anymore. The Amish people just moved here about a year ago, so we weren't seeing that at that point. But you could hear the thing thundering down the road. And I ran out to the porch, didn't find anything out there. But where we were living, actually, the original town, Burlingame, is actually one of the oldest cities in Kansas, dating back to 1854. The block that we're on actually used to be the livery stable, and it held about 200 head of horses.
Wow.
A lot of horses here. Burlingame used to be the biggest city in Kansas prior to about 1878, 1879. 30,000 people living here. It was one of the only places where the railroad crossed the Santa Fe Trail. And so everybody was coming through here. In fact, our street is it's so wide that people park on both sides of the street and in the middle because they would turn the wagon trains around in town. And with that livery stable being right there, so to me, it was like looking back at it, I'm like, I wasn't so much afraid. It was more of, hey, wait a second. This is somebody coming back. Maybe they're just here visiting their horse. But it was still startling enough that I'm screaming. And then talking with the landlord later, she had been painting in the house prior to us moving in, and she was working real late at night. And as she was painting the windowsills of the house, she said she walked as a shadowy man with a cowboy hat, walked through from the living room and into the dining room.
Wow.
She never worked in the house late at night after that. But it scared her to death because it was this shadow. And it's like, there's nobody else in the house with me.
Wow. That one you feel like probably had some connection to the past.
I think it did, just because of the location and what was going on, in the area. And then, like I said, about an hour later, that sound of that wagon or stagecoach coming thundering.
Right.
I mean, you can hear the horses. It was very loud. And I'm like, woke my wife up. Do you hear that? Oh, yeah, I hear it. But
so kind of like a residual instead of a intelligent haunting.
I don't know. I think the wagon may be a residual. I think the man in the hat was definitely intelligent. Like, especially to sit there and to reach out and touch somebody. I mean, it's on the side of my leg, and I'm like, wait.
All right. Well, Donnie, you mentioned this earlier, so tell us, exactly what happened with your Hatman sighting.
You're breaking up. What'd you say?
Your story. You mentioned it a while ago about the Hatman. Tell us exactly what happened with your sighting.
I've had 2 times. I was about 13, I think, and I was asleep, and something woke me up, and I remember it. There was a black figure standing right at the foot of my bed, and he had the flat brim cap like we were talking about.
Right.
And the second time, I was my father had died, and I was in Tuscaloosa going to college, and Roll Tide, and I came home. Had to throw that in there, but I came home. My mother had moved with my aunt, and I had came to the house to pick up some things, and I felt, like you said, this chill that gave me goosebumps. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow walk from one room into my parents' old room. And Donnie got up and made haste to get in his car and leaving. That kind of piqued my interest, and ever since then, I've loved anything paranormal. I've lived in 3 houses that were just downright evil, but I divorced each one of them, so
I'm right there with you, but yeah, I understand. All right. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, you threw me off. We got a private chat thing, I wish I'd thought about ordering pizza. Doggone it.
Actually, sounds pretty good right about now.
Yes, it does. All right. Before we get into the, oh, wait a minute. I thought I had something else here. Did I have? Oh, no, I've already done that. I'm confusing myself now. Before we get into, we've got some more questions and suppositions. I wanted to remind y'all that we do have merch sites. All right, I saw some of y'all dancing.
I need to buy one of those coffee mugs.
What?
I need to buy one of the coffee mugs. That way I'm not sitting there drinking out of what I'm doing.
I think Dagny, one of our ETs, shared that she got one of those, I believe in aliens coffee mug. Yeah, I
Hers
thought
is
that
cool.
a while ago to represent. I've got my ET shirt on. So, all right, we have, Beth, one of our ETs, submitted some questions, and I'm sure we all have some kind of questions that we want to kind of start winding this down to close it out, to ask her questions, make her conclusions, that kind of thing. Does sleep paralysis have anything to do with sleepwalking? They're just the opposite, right? So, have people seen this sleepwalking?
Well, when you look at when sleep paralysis and sleepwalking come in, it's usually during that REM phase. So I think it's kind of just however your body wants to handle that disruption.
Right.
So they are kind of in that same time frame of sleep. It's not in the deep sleep and it's not in the light sleep. It's in that REM phase. So, I don't know. I don't think they're the same. I think it's how your body's handling disruption, kind of like how, like a night terror, or
Right.
something like that. So,
Donnie, were you going to say something? I guess not. Well, you brought up night terrors. So that was the next question. Could this be compared to night terrors, you think?
maybe. I mean, I have a child that when she was younger had night terrors, but she didn't scream. She laughed like maniacally. It was kind of worse. But she never knew. She didn't remember. And so we would wake up to hearing her laugh. We could, in front of her face, do all of this. She had to get through it. And then she would lay back down and go to sleep, and it could last 5 to 10 minutes. But she didn't remember it ever. Right. So the difference is and usually people who sleepwalk, they don't remember sleepwalking. But this night paralysis, they remember, and I think it's because they're waking up. So I'm wondering if it's that time where they're going from REM into light sleeping. But they remember it. One of the things I do if I see something at night, I don't want to move to scare it away. I don't want to know that it's there. So one of the things I do is I'll clench my fist, slightly. And, if you can do this, you're not paralyzed. If you can move your toes, you're not paralyzed. Because one of the things I've noticed from doing the research is when people became aware and reacted to this happening, it was gone. It didn't linger. So
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it does disappear immediately. So that brings up another point. Is it all just a dream? Are these, did Donnie and Tim and Tommy experience, what's the word? I don't remember, but it has to do with dreaming and you think you're awake kind of thing. Is this all just part of a dream and a night terror? I don't know. I mean, Tommy knows what he saw was real. Donnie knows what he saw was real. Tim knows what he saw was real. Christine has seen things and she knows they're real.
I wasn't asleep.
Right. True.
But I was a teenager, and teenagers thrive on sleep deprivation. So could I have been just, deprived of sleep, that healing time of rest enough that, and it was late at night, maybe I was just in that right frame of mind, so.
And Beth brought up an interesting question that I'd never thought about. She asked, is this entity, this hat man, trying to communicate? I mean, we kind of get a consensus that he's drawing off our fear, but is he trying to
Thank you.
tell us something?
Thank you.
There we go.
That was John. So,
Hello, John. All right. And if he is trying to communicate, I mean, what do you think, Tommy? Do you think it was trying to communicate with you?
Well, he didn't say nothing, thank God. But I really don't know. He might have been, because it turns out after we researched in a little bit and had a medium come in to check the house out and everything, supposed to be blessing the house, we had one spot that she wouldn't even go to. She turned and moved away from it as quick as she could. And that's needless to say, about 3 days later, we was out of the house. But it's like the other girl was saying. She felt like he scared me, but he didn't feel like he was evil. It was like, I kind of agree with what this other girl said. Like maybe he might have been some kind of messenger. I don't know what the message was.
Yeah.
Unless that message was to get out of there before something worse happened.
True. Well,
yeah, I've heard that really where a spirit will come and warn you, and the next day or two, something happens.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Mothman.
Right.
I was thinking that, Andrew.
When that medium come in, she went through every room except for one. And when she got to that one room, she didn't turn around and step away from it. She backed right into me and then turned around got away from it. She said, I ain't going in that room. You don't need it.
Wow. So there may be. Yeah. But yeah, Andrew, I had thought Mothman because there's belief that he is a sign of warning for something. Could be different things. Suppositions. What do y'all think? Narcolepsy, insomnia, sleep disorders, mental disorders, schizophrenia.
I read a study on schizophrenia and how people were experiencing shadow men, Hat Man, the Hag, and then their experiences were even going as far as these things were violating them at night. And so they went to a psychiatrist. This was a study that was done on these. I mean, it was a shadow people study, but they were also, they noticed that these patients were also experiencing hearing unattached voices, or seeing things also out of the corner of their eye during the day. So they were diagnosed with schizophrenia. Right. They were put on medicine to control the schizophrenia, and they had like a 75 to 100% improvement. So here's the question though. Was it a mental disorder all along? What were they so disturbed by their mental disorder that at night they were more susceptible to being attacked because they were in a weakened state? Or did the medication cause a suppression of what they were experiencing so that it didn't bother them anymore? I always kind of wondered, like, it really, it can only be one of those three things. So, but that was the only thing I found. They actually, they called it because it was violating them. It was a study on psychiatric study, and it was on an incubus and succubus attacks on patients.
Well, yeah, I had that in the notes to go over that. What did you say, Tommy?
My question on that though is when they was doing these studies, was these people that was going to their house at night to sleep, or was they staying in a facility?
They were sleeping in their own home. They were coming to the psychiatrist to explain what was happening to them. But they did have sleep studies done on them. They had a full gamut of studies to, rule anything out, blood tests. They had their thyroid checked, sugar, all of those different levels of, anything that can cause a problem. They had all of that checked prior. Yeah. And so they were given the diagnosis. I kind of felt like it was a little unfair, I'll be honest. Because
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What? All I said is I thought it was unfair because so many of us, it takes a lot of bravery sometimes to admit that something's going on. And one of our biggest fears is somebody's going to look at us and say, you're crazy. And so, and it's an awful feeling.
Yeah.
You know, it's a terrible feeling to have somebody look at you and say you're making that up when you're not.
Right. What were you saying, Tommy?
Yeah, I was just I was curious because if it was something that they was doing at just a facility, it actually could have been something attached to that facility and not with them, actually with them. But if they was going home, that's a whole different case.
Yeah.
They were at home. And the age of the patients were from 17 to 28.
Wow.
So they were even younger.
Wow.
And I thought that was interesting also that they were all younger.
Well, let me say this. We can make suppositions all day long, but we would never it would never insinuate that we think someone who's seen the Hat Man is schizophrenic or having mental disorders or dealing with a succubus or incubus. You know, we're just throwing out possibilities. So if you're watching this and you've experienced the Hat Man, we're not saying that you're schizophrenic. Okay?
No.
Possibilities. You know, some out there experience it may be, but we don't believe that most are. We're just throwing out possibilities. Now, we're going to close it down now. And what I'm going to do is go to each one of the ETs here and let them give a final statement on what they believe about the Hat Man. We're going to start with Donnie. Donnie, your final thoughts on the Hat Man.
Like I said, I've had 2 experiences, and there's definitely, I believe they feed on your fear. It just depends really sometimes on your state of mind, and they're here for some reason. Like I said, I believe that they feed off your fear. The reason they're here is not really known. That's
okay. That's all. All right, Christine, your final thoughts.
Well, I don't know if it's just a Hat Man or if it's everything combined together, but in my opinion, there is something out there. Sometimes it is to warn us of something coming, and then other times it's just trying to, say, hey, look, there is something more besides this life. Don't put off what you can do today.
Right.
Go ahead and do whatever you can do because, you're not guaranteed forever. But, just realize that there is something more to this. And, just do what you can do while you're here. And I think that some of them come to show us that, our loved ones are still watching over us. They still care about us. They're not wanting to be forgotten.
That's good. That's good. All right, Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
I agree with Christine. Yes, they're here. They have something. They have a reason. We just don't necessarily know the reason. I also agree with Donnie that they do feed off of our fears. I have just been lucky enough so far that I haven't been injured or had anything bad happen. And hopefully I won't.
Yeah.
But the big thing I want to say is if you have something that happens, don't be afraid to tell somebody. Find somebody to talk to about it. The more you hold it in, the worse it's going to be on you.
There you go. You're stealing my thunder. All right, Tim.
Great minds think alike.
Right.
Tim, your final thoughts.
I think some of the Hat Men that we run into are going to be physical spirits. I often tell guests on tours that every spirit that we come across, nearly every spirit that we come across, has got some kind of history behind it. It
Right.
wants to tell us something about either itself or about the past. And I think in my case, that's what I've run into more frequently, particularly with the one that I dealt with 20 years ago, is that spirit it probably did feed on fear. I think a lot of different spirits feed on fear. I think even human spirits will feed on fear because it gives them the energy they need to manifest themselves in some way. But it does come down to, let somebody know. Talk to different groups. If you're in Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Nebraska, get in touch with me. I can get you in touch with somebody in your area that's going to be able to help you.
Both of you stealing my thunder. All right, Andrea, your final thoughts.
So my final thought on the Hat Man is I personally, I don't think it's something good. I think that it's something that if you are experiencing this on a regular basis, you need to reach out and find somebody that's going to help you. I think that it's wanting you to be afraid. So one of the things that, I will do is, and everybody does it different, but I will pray before I go to bed. And I'm like, I want to sleep peacefully. Right. I want a good night's rest. I want to heal while I'm asleep. I don't want to be bothered. And I think that that's the best way to handle that, is to kind of protect yourself. And that's the best way to handle it, especially when you're dealing with something that wants you to be afraid and it wants to feed on that fear. Why would you let it? So, and, I'm located here in Ohio. If you're watching this and you want to reach out, I will help you find somebody to help you.
Guys, it's amazing. You all kind of just, we're all heading in the same direction there. I wrote this little thing as a closing comments. While the shadow people and the Hat Man seem to be evil incarnate, please remember the old adage about vampires. They can only come in if invited. Now, I know that's not a perfect analogy, but the intent in using it is the same, that this entity seems to only stay when nothing is done to remove it. While this seems to be an extreme invasion into your psyche, it seems that in every case, any outside influence can interrupt what they seem determined to do. So like Andrea said a while ago, move your hands, move your fingers, move your toes, something to disrupt what is going on. Now, I may be wrong, but at this time, I don't really know of anybody experiencing a shadow person that got physically injured. There may be, and I may have missed it, but I haven't heard of any physical harm. But extreme and intense fear, oh, most definitely, that is there. And that's, every witness has voiced the same thing. If you come in contact with one of these entities, it's been said already, contact someone you trust and tell them about it. Share your experience. It's like Lynn and I were talking last night. If you go into an old shed that's full of roaches and you open the door, turn on the light, what happens?
Scatter.
The roaches scatter. Okay, sometimes it's just getting it out in the open can do wonders in alleviating the situation. Find a trusted friend or a family member. And another step, and it's already been mentioned, would be actually get help and bring someone into your home that has expertise in this area. It could be your pastor, your priest, a paranormal investigator. Tommy talked about getting a medium. Someone. I mean, we're not encouraging you to go outside your belief system, okay? If you have complete trust in your pastor, call your pastor. If you're not a church goer and you don't attend services, call a psychic or medium that you trust, okay? Find someone that you trust. That's the point. Because once you start talking about these things, and I believe Tommy's going to see that with the lady he's helping, when she starts, and she's already started talking about it, I think these things are going to start to recede. And again, it's already been voiced, but if you don't know of anybody that can help you with this, then contact us here at Strange Journeys. We will find you someone that can help you. Well, guys, another awesome show. You were amazing as usual, also amazing. And we thank the ETs and we thank everybody for being here. And it's time for our closing bid. right, we'll be back in 2 weeks with special guest Kent Rasmussen of Salem Paranormal, and we'll be talking about ghost hunting. See you soon. Thanks for being here, guys.
See
Love
ya.
y'all.